Our next session, here we are, of Torah Atlanta, and I am sitting opposite, or at least opposite the screen, on which is Rabbi Yossi Lerman. And Rabbi Lerman and I, we get a chance to see each other, not to schmooze so much, but we do get a chance to see each other almost every day because Rabbi Lerman comes to the minyan at Congregation Ariel, and so we get a chance to daven together, which is a pretty special thing. Both pray to God together, but we don't get a chance to schmooze so much. But Rabbi Lerman is the director of Chabad of Gwinnett, and so tell us a little bit about yourself and what is Chabad of Gwinnett up to these days?
Thank you, Rabbi Friedman, and it is really an honor. I'm humbled to be a part of this Torah study and being a part of the teachers roster. Thank you again for inviting me. And you probably don't know this, but I'm a little bit of a student of yours as well, because I do listen in to your morning shiurim. So I'm up to date with Mishnayos Bab Metzia and Sanhedrin, Masechta Sanhedrin. So yes, I think it's Samach Tes on a base.
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
In fact, today's conversation in Gemara was a bit of a challenging one.
Yeah.
So thank you again, Rabbi Friedman. And as you mentioned, I feel like I am more or less responsible for everything Jewish here in Gwinnett County. I find myself doing lots of wearing different hats as a rabbi, as a mentor, as a coach, as a marriage counselor, as a social worker, or just delivering food, going to the hospitals, whatnot. So I think there's a sense here that in Gwinnett County, at least, where there's not much going on from an institution perspective, that there is one phone number that people know, and that is 678-595-0196. Thank you again for inviting me, and let's go forward.
Yeah, well, so Rabbi Lerman, when I asked you to participate in this program, so you handed me something pretty neat, and that is this book that is authored by Rabbi Lerman and a fellow named Scott Frank, who I have yet to meet. And I really like the title because the title is certainly something that I think all of us can immediately relate to right now, right? People walk around with a lot of stress and not so much joy. So I would really like to have less stress. There's no doubt about that. Less stress in my life, and I presume that more joy would come in its wake. So I'm all ears and waiting to hear what you can share with us about this topic, a pretty important topic. So please.
Okay, so of course, this is a little bit different conversation that I guess rabbis usually have, but I'd like to have this different conversation. This is more about quality of life. And I have been on this journey through all my life, looking for a happy person, looking for the secret of joy. I've been studying about it. It's almost become my passion. You know, when you have a sugya that you are very much involved, anytime I see the word joy, it grabs my attention. Well, something really amazing happened here in Gwinnett County when I met this individual whose picture is on the back of the book, and his name is Scott Frank. And there's something about Scott Frank that this person, I feel, lives a joyful life. So the story of this book is an interesting story where we got together and we're coming at it, in fact, from different directions. I'm coming at it naturally as a Yid looking through Torah from a Jewish perspective and Jewish psychology, if you wish. And he was coming at it completely from a non-Jewish perspective. He wasn't involved in the Jewish community or in any other form of Jewish life. Of course, I shouldn't speak for him. But the bottom line is that we kind of merged and married the knowledge, experience of where I was coming from and where he was coming from, which makes this book have its story within its own story. It's how did you come to this conclusion? And it's kind of like a marriage between the Jewish and the secular philosophies and perspectives of life. So we were looking for the secret or the potion of having a joyful life. Well, first we probably need to define what is joy, and then try to define and try to create the steps to approach joy. I'd like to start perhaps with this little anecdotal little story. It was just a few days ago that I was having lunch with an individual who was a professional golf player. It's what you might call a scratch golfer. Little do I know about golf, but I've just been learning about golf. A 0 handicap. So I asked him to tell me every day at the golf course is the same. So he says, well, of course not. Some days are better than others. So what makes a good day at the golf course? So he started to describe, well, it's all in the mind. What's going on in your head and what's going on in your heart. If you're having a heavy duty day and if you're bogged down, if you're stressed out, if you're emotionally moving in different directions, then you will not have a good day at golf. And he described himself by saying that he does well because he knows how to block out all those thoughts. So when he's standing there with with this golf, he is able to clear his mind, clear his heart from all negativity, and then he feels very much in the presence, where he becomes one with the golf club, and there's a sense of openness, and he swings at that, and it is perfect. And so what he just described was what we call in our book the 3 steps. The 3 steps to that ultimate life, which is a healthy way of life, a healthy state of mind, is step 1 is peace of mind, 2, harmony, and 3 is joy. In other words, the idea is if you want to have quality of life, and you want to be at your peak performance, you know that if you're having a headache, you're not really absolutely doing your best. If you have a stomach ache, you're not doing your very best. If you are very stressed out about something, whether it's at home, whether it's about a family member, whether it's an argument you just had with your spouse, with your brother, with your father, you know that that's going to take up a lot of real estate in your head, in your mind, and in your heart. And you're not going to be there to perform at your very best, at your very peak. So just about in every discipline of life, including in sports, you can take, for example, two wrestlers, and they're both equal in weight and equal in size and equal in experience. But if one of them comes to the game and he just had a blow up with someone in his family, and he's just not there with us, you can almost guarantee he's going to lose the game. And so the Torah tells us that there is an obligation for us to be besimcha. It's almost a moral obligation to be besimcha. If I was going to come to work one day and I told my boss, you know what, I took a night job, which means that I'm going to be working all night, and then I come to my office here, my boss has the right to say, no, I am very sorry. I need you 100%. You are morally obligated to give me 100% of everything you have. If you're coming in tired, then you can't perform at your very best, at your very peak. And this, of course, is in our mind, the definition of joy. When I think of joy, I'm not thinking of loud joy, of rah, bouncing around and screaming and yelling or laughter. That's not what I'm thinking about. When I think of joy, I think of a healthy, elevated state of mind and being. I am stimulated. There's a sense of movement, openness, lightness. In fact, I think of joy. Joy is not an emotion. It's not a specific emotion like love. Joy is a state of being. It's a disposition. It's where everything is running on high alert. Everything is on high beat. All the cylinders are well greased and everything is moving. My mind is fully attentive. I've got my heart is open. That is the ultimate level where we want to be on a daily basis. So when I think of joy, I think of movement. The opposite of joy is sadness, which is stagnation. When I think of joy, I think of openness. When I think of sadness, I think of closing in. When I think of joy, I think of energized. When I think of sadness, I think of being drained. When I think of joy, I think of light. Sadness is heavy. Joy allows us to have a true self-expression. That means if you want to be able to express your talents and bring out of those talents, to reveal, to redeem those hidden talents, those hidden skills, that will come out through joy. So that's the story about joy. And now, how do we reach that level of joy? And so we broke it down into those three steps. And I think that is perhaps our contribution with this book is to break it down. Otherwise, it's just this big peak, this big mountain, and how do we get there? So let's break it down. Step one, peace of mind, which means calm down. We have to figure out what to do with all those stresses that are going on in our life. When I mean stress, I mean really anything that is of a negative nature. Jealousy, anger, frustration, all of that can be, and more can be part of that word of stress. And so try to calm ourselves down. What can calm you down? Well, the truth is that lots and lots of ways people calm themselves down. We have a whole chapter, the book, suggesting, and that's where suggestions come in. What works for you doesn't always work for me. But the awareness is that negative thoughts and negative emotions is going to drain me. And I cannot be my best to perform and to contribute if I am in that state of mind. So the awareness is really just the first step. Be aware that I'm feeling really stressed out right now, and therefore can't expect too much from me right now. So step one is to figure out, perhaps you might call it the obstacles to joy. Because we believe that once you remove the obstacles, frankly, joy is right there. Joy is not necessarily a new meditation, a new avodah, a new chapter. It's when you remove the stress, the negative thoughts, the negative emotions. You can also then move on to the next level, which is harmony. Well, harmony, of course, is another chapter. Harmony naturally means a lot of things to many people. We think of harmony as harmony in relationships. I need to know that I have harmony with my family. I need to know I have harmony in my neighborhood, in my community. We're really suffering a lot today from the lack of harmony in our society in general, and that is affecting all of us. And so harmony is another big chapter. Finding harmony within yourself is a big deal. Like how do I find harmony with my own life? How do I make harmony between my work and my home, between my week and my weekends, between my body and my soul? How do I become one person, not just multiple pieces and parts playing different roles? How do I make harmony between mind and heart, between good and bad? How do I create one vision and one mission statement? So we have a lot of work to do in the neighborhood, in the area of creating harmony within our own being. This is work, Rabbi Friedman. This is not something that we just take this pill and this is the happy pill. In fact, you know that they have realized that the word bisimcha is the same oisios, the same letters as machshava, which of course puts the responsibility right there in the sense of thought and machshava. And as I was thinking about those three steps of the peace and the harmony and then the joy, I think I found something that might be of interest in the famous tefillah of Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad. Three words, three phrases. Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad. So when I start thinking about Shema Yisrael, what came to mind is Moshe Rabbeinu comes to the Bnei Yisrael and he tells them, guys, it's me. I'm here. I'm going to take you out of this. I'm going to take you home. I'm going to give you what you've been waiting for. And the pasuk says, "V'lo shamu el Moshe mikotze ruach u'me'avoda kosher." The people could not hear him due to the hard labor or the shortness of breath and hard labor. It's a very interesting insight into a human being, where you are so stressed out, you're not hearing me. You're not hearing me even if I have the greatest news. They're just looking at you with these glazed, fixed eyes. And v'lo shamu el Moshe. So the pasuk really has to get our attention. It says Shema Yisrael. I begin to wonder, strange, why do you have to give me a pasuk, Shema Yisrael? What's the message in Shema Yisrael? The message is make some space in your mind, in your heart. Open yourself up. Release yourself from that avodah kasha or the miketze ruach. I also find, Rabbi Friedman, that some people are very, very over stressed out, like the case of the Yidden in Mitzrayim. And some people go into this place where they're very, very shallow. It's almost like they have become so fixed, including they're looking at their phone all day, they're looking at the YouTube all day, and that creates a very shallow, superficial human being. Everything is fed to them, easy. And so they are, again, not going too deep into life because they're just like floating over the surface, very shallow. Another case where the pasuk says, Shema Yisrael. So we need to kind of get your attention. So Shema Yisrael is that making the space, the peace of mind, the calming down. Then Hashem Elokeinu, which is an interesting phrase, something about Hashem and something about Elokeinu, which represents two of God's energies coming together in some form of harmony. So I'm thinking about this. Interesting. Shema Yisrael, step one, Hashem Elokeinu. And then what is the Hashem Echad? It's like that guy standing in the golf and he's holding his club and he says, I am one with my club, with my golf club. Or it's like the musician who doesn't think about what button do I press now or what string do I press now. You can be thinking about that now. You have to be totally one. One meaning you're in the moment, and one means that you and whatever you're doing is in a sense of total oneness. You almost lose yourself. There's a phrase that I heard, I'm not sure who it's attributed to. It says, you can't find God until you lose yourself. To some extent, there's a truth about, like, imagine you're not there anymore and you're just lost in the moment. So, being in the moment, as a lot of people talk about being in the moment, is a very important aspect of joy. Once again, if you're split, if you're thinking about the past now then once again, you're doing multitasking. You're thinking about the future right now. Again, you're somewhere else. And so the experience of joy, which I can't say I have that joyful moments every day. Of course, every day is a struggle, which is why we named the book Less Stress, More Joy. That means if we can accomplish a little bit of less stress and give us a little bit of more joy, then we have definitely done our job, done our work. But it's very, very clear to me that we rarely have to check our machshava, our thought process, and what just came into my thought process. And it's interesting that in Tanya it says that even if you have, in the middle of the day, you have a thought about doing teshuvah. In other words, something that came up and you're feeling very regretful about an incident, an event in life, Tanya warns us, be very careful where that thought just came from. In other words, it sounds like a very religious thought, but if that thought pushes you down and doesn't allow you to feel energized, doesn't give you confidence, then be very aware that that thought can very well be coming from the wrong side of the aisle. So that is in brief summary of the idea that we discussed in the book. And Rabbi Friedman, I want to make an offer here that I will give this book for free to anyone who reaches out to me that is part of your community. My gift to you, my gift to them, I will provide this book for free. We do have workshops that Scott Frank and myself lead workshops on this topic. We actually have a workshop scheduled for next Wednesday night. More information is available on our website of chabadofgwinnett.org. So once again, I would love to share this book for free. My goal is not to make any money. It was never a goal of mine. I never had any goals of writing any books. But here we are, and we put some ideas together for discussion. And it's a pursuit of life and a journey of life. And for all of us to realize is that everything in your life will be enhanced if you can reach some level of joy. More joy will make everything better. Everything will move faster, stronger, more efficient if you have more joy. So it's almost a no-brainer that if we're going to be contributors to the society, if we're going to be serving Hashem, then it's a no-brainer that we want to do this in the best possible. Let's be there and be our best.
Right. So I'd like to pose something to you. It's a question that I have thought of a lot. I notice, it seems to me, that there are Jews who are not observant seem to have a feeling that observant Jews are sort of walk around like high all the time. You know, they're just always happy. maybe sort of like on drugs, like that their religion is sort of drugged them up and they're always happy. And that's what all you religious people, you're always just so happy because you believe. And once you believe, like everything is okay. Now, I don't know. I'd like you, first of all, like, what are your observations about that? I know you've spent a good bit of time with a lot of religious people, and as I have. And first of all, what are your observations about that? And is it true? Do religious people, are they generally happier or are they not? And what makes for, if a person is religious, what makes them? I know some are, but I know some aren't. What is that? What do you attribute that to?
So that's interesting question because I often wonder that maybe religious Jews are more serious and don't come across as being too happy or joyful. Um, when I'm in the airport and I'm looking around and I usually observe people, I get the impression that non-Jews are quite happy. They joke loud, they laugh out loud. It just seems that way to me. So it's an interesting observation. I'm not sure whether the go-to is religious people are happier or not. It's a good question to take an account. Which one is it? But I would say that I would consider it one of the biggest compliment. If you would say to me, Yossi, what is it about you you're so happy? That would be my number one greatest compliment. By the way, if I have something that makes you happy, I assume that you want what I have. So instead of, well, the first thing I should do is show a living example of what it is to be an observant Jew, a Torah Yid, a Torah Mitzvahs Jew, and they don't see what's going on in my head, but they see if I am happy and joyful. And typically they would like to say, well, what are you taking? What are you drinking? I want some of that. Rabbi Friedman, I would just give you, by my observation, what really attracts me to you is I have found you to be a very joyful person. And it's contagious. I would like to know your secrets as well. What do you do? How do you do it? But I have seen other rabbis. Of course, in the Hasidic world, simcha is very, very much up there. I don't know much about the non-Hasidic world, but definitely I can tell you what I have seen. And kol hakavod to you, whatever you're doing, keep it up. Because I believe very much that is what brings people, what attracts people. Everybody is looking for happiness.
Right. Well, I'll tell you one thing that I would say that observance and happiness do not, in my mind, go hand in hand, because I know many people that have committed to living a Torah observant life, which means that they're following a lot of structure and doing a lot of observance, that they're going to get a lot of details. That doesn't necessarily mean, though, that they're happy, because the happiness comes from those things of like knowing that things that are beyond your control are taken care of by God, knowing that you're not expected to do things that are beyond your control, knowing that the world in general is a safe place because there's a God who created it and he created music. Those are type of things, but that's different than observance. A truly Torah Jew should have all of that, but you don't have to. It doesn't necessarily come hand in hand.
Yes.
Some people can be very observant,
Yes.
and yet they don't have all those other factors.
Yes.
And I've also observed people that have those other factors. They're not very observant.
I absolutely agree. And again, I feel responsible to keep pushing or inspiring the joy part. And we might even say to somebody, if this is not feeling joyful, then we have to revisit this.
Right.
So yeah, the sometimes rigid rules can get too much and takes away the joy. And I'm afraid that if it's not joyful, or if it's worse, if it's stressful, that's one of the things that will go.
Yeah.
So you're absolutely right. A big part of the book naturally deals with the topic of bitachon. You know, I had to write the book. When I wrote the book, I was not writing the book for a Jewish person. I dafke wrote the book for a non-Jewish person. This book is officially a book for everybody else. I didn't want necessarily that my Chabad colleagues even read the book, because, you know, they're gonna, oh no, what are you talking about? But no, I wrote the book for non-Jews, and I had to figure out how to speak about God when you're talking to the whole world. Everything you talked about, the fact that I don't have to carry the world's load on my shoulders and worry about everything and anybody and everything, is a very, very key machshava, hashkafa, state of mind and perspective that we have to revisit on a daily basis.
Yeah.
But again, I would definitely tell you, Rabbi Friedman, kol hakavod to you. And that, I think the joy thing is what also brings people together. The joy thing is, like we say, simcha poretz geder. It breaks walls and boundaries amongst people. So for all of the above, absolutely, to build a community or to build a team and to be a team builder, we definitely need to figure this out, the joy ingredients.
You know, I'd like to also bring up another factor, which I feel is more and more prevalent in our society, which is fear. People carry so much fear around today. There is global fears and there are, you know, localized fears. Global fears, you know, of course, there's COVID pandemics. Maybe we're all going to die from a pandemic. You know, wherever you go, you could be infected. Even if we get that straightened out, like the climate is going to, you know, the whole world is going to be destroyed. Then if you're a Jew, there's of course anti-Semitic attacks, you know, various, you know, racial things, police, there's brutality in the streets, and, you know, on and on. And people are afraid about everything. And so much of life is governed by fear. And how can you be happy if you're afraid of, you know, even if we would take care of 4 or 5 of the fears, there seems to be like there's always another one to go on to. So how can you be
Absolutely,
happy if you're being afraid all the time?
absolutely right. In that word, stress is included all of any negative, any toxic emotion. And it's, by the way, it's good to know what I mentioned earlier, that it could very well be that the fear is not my feeling. It could very well be that the Yetzer Hara is throwing that on my head, in my head, and say, hey, try this. Hey, don't you think this is a problem? So being aware that what are you trying to do here? What's your goal? Oh, you're trying to weaken me. Once I'm fearful, I'm pretty much, I'm done. I'm on my way down, because you've weakened my whole state of being. You know, Rabbi Friedman, it's interesting. I know we have a few minutes left. As you know, the founder of Hasidus is the Baal Shem Tov, and the story goes that he lost his father when he was a child, about 5 or 6 years old. And here is what we know about that moment. His father, Eliezer, was going to die. And he takes his little son, Yisrael, and just imagine that moment, the little Yisraelik is standing by his father's bed, who's about to depart. And according to the story that the Baal Shem Tov said, his father told him two things. And he said to him, I'll say to you in Yiddish and translate. Number one, Hob farkeinem kaimoirenit. Have no fear from anything, chutz von der Eibishter. One. Two, Hob lieb alle Menschen. Love all humankind. Which I think is the two found fundamental ideas in what you're saying is get rid of the negative, which is fear, which is probably the father of all negative emotions. And I think that is, in our definition, peace is habnishkein, don't have fear. Second, hablib al, love all, is harmony. Mm-hmm. I always wondered why his father didn't tell him number three, which is be b'simcha. Mm-hmm. Yesh leimar is that is something that comes automatically. If you have the no fear aspect, and we know that's the life of this little boy, but the Yisraelik, he would roam in the forest by himself. He somehow had so much faith and bitachon, trust in Hashem. He didn't have an ounce of fear, and of course the love aspect of the Baal Shem Tov and Chassidisim, and that brought the natural, instinctive joy of life.
Right. You know, I know that if you have a little child, and the little children are so out of control. Like every child knows that they're not in control of anything. They don't know where they're going to get dinner from, but they depend on their parents. When they go somewhere, who knows what's going to happen to them? But if I'm going with mommy and daddy, they'll take care of me. And child trusts that everything's going to be okay, even though they know they're totally out of control. And that seems to be, if we can develop that sense of trust, that we're, we're cared for, we're loved, everything's going to be good, and even if this thing goes wrong, or even if I'm going to interview for this job, I'll lose and I won't get it. I might lose my job, or whatever, but everything is going to work out in the end. It gives us a sense of approaching life with a certain calm, and therefore we'll have room for joy.
It's very true. And children are naturally joyful.
Right.
They're naturally joyful because you took away all that fear factor, and they're feeling their sense of okay. I'm totally okay.
Right.
And so they're just joyful. They're energized. Even when they fall, they'll cry, get back up again, and keep moving and keep moving. And that gives me a lot of hope. Is that the inner child in me is where I need to go.
Right. No stress. Well, thank you. This has been absolutely fascinating. And so Rabbi Lerman gave you his phone number at the very beginning. I'm sure all you have to do is look up Chabad of Gwinnett, if you know how to spell Gwinnett, and you can find it. And like I said, for all things happening if you're in Gwinnett, for all things Jewish, go to Rabbi Lerman. And if you're not in Gwinnett, and you're just more interested in about a life of less stress and more joy, it's also a great place to go. So thank you very much for participating in this program. And Yemir Hashem, I hope to see you, and we'll pray together soon.
We will indeed, and thank you again, and wishing you all good health and happiness, and shalom around the world, and shalom in Eretz Yisrael. Thank you.
Amen.